So I'm going to show you how to edit this portrait into this one here. We're going to be using every single tool. I'm going to be recreating this edit with all the knowledge I've learned over the last 4 years of doing these tutorials, the knowledge I've learned from all the guest editors, showing you how to look at someone's image and know how to make the adjustments to get the style. No matter the style they have, you can recreate any style. Lightroom, everyone's using the same editing software. Really a mathematical formula to create any color you want, and then you got to be able to make any color you want in the right brightness. So you also need to know how to control brightness, matte, detail in your image, and then you know how to control color. You really can recreate anyone's style if you understand these tools in depth enough and how they interact with each other. So if you're in the course, you'll also have access to this raw image so you can follow along in this tutorial, or just like practice with other styles, presets, the difference between sliders and curves, and you'll see throughout this edit that is really important to understand. But yeah, his links will be down in the description. We have the raw image that we're working with to recreate his edit, and then the settings 2.8, 47mm, 4000 shutter because it's bright, bang on like sun going down, low ISO because it's bright, and yeah, all right, let's get into this one. Okay, so this is the unedited one here, and we're trying to obviously bring in a lot of blues, a lot of yellows, especially yellows to like skin tones and blues to the greens, like really common theme in his Instagram. I straight away know we're going to be adding a lot of blues in and stuff, but as you can see, we're really warm, so this is right on sunset, so like the white balance actually isn't that bad, even though it looks very warm. Like it's just that sunset light was really hitting. So we're gonna go for white balance a bit cooler. Now also with the temperature, what I have done is I've just got this curve already done, so it just takes out a lot of warmth, especially in the highlights. So if you look at her hat especially, you're just trying to white balance it, and I just found it easier with a curve like this where there's way more blue up in the whites. It'll get warmer and warmer, especially in the mid-tones. It's quite hard to take out so much warmth in the whites, so sometimes I do that. It makes your whites look really white. So that's what I thought was a good idea for this. So when I do this and bring down the temperature, we get a lot closer, way better white balance. Because without this, you can see we're too warm, and then when I bring the temperature down, I just don't like how it makes it really, really cold. I'd rather just try to keep those whites kinda white. Okay, so we're gonna go contrast down. He definitely uses the curves, so we will jump into curves that will also do contrast. So all of this might not make heaps of sense of like why I'm doing it, because tools interact with each other so much. I'm gonna bring the shadows up here, and like I'll probably bring the shadows down in the curves shortly, and I'll try to explain why. So I'm gonna bring the highlights up, because just looking at the hat, you can see like there's this touch of overexposure. So detail, look how much detail we can see in the hat. And now its detail is quite similar, I find. So one of the biggest things like you'll learn in the course is like more advanced things where what's the difference between curves and sliders? Like they both affect contrast, but in a different way. So yeah, and I think in terms of detail, working between curves versus the sliders. Okay, we need more color. Clarity, I think he goes for the film look, wants it nice and soft. Dehaze for a bit of glow, very subtle. And we'll go for a smooth look also by bringing down the texture. Okay, so he has a really nice matted look, I'd probably describe it as. Curves are very important. So for this one, I'm gonna bring up the shadows here and the lights a little bit. So it's gonna give a lift and therefore a shine to the darker areas of the image. But then in this curve, I'm thinking down a bit, Maybe the mids stay about where they are. Curves just give us way more control over the contrast we want. I'm gonna go something about here. Okay, let's jump to split toning, probably the most important part. Here, we're gonna put tons of blue in the shadows. Like, it's a common theme in his images. So I know to do that. And then now we're gonna balance these colors out. So for example, now we're gonna put more of a yellowy green in the mids. That'll help with the skin tone and a bit more of a warmer tone. And then the highlights. Highlights, we're gonna go for a green. And it looks a little bit too crazy, but like when we fine tune things up here, all the colors will start to make sense, because it is a case of bouncing between the tools, and different tools make it look worse first, and then it's what makes it kind of difficult. So we obviously need to like bring back redness into her skin. So we're gonna go more towards the purples, more towards the reds, yellows as well. Not too bad. Aquas, not a lot in here. And then saturation plays a big role. Like sometimes you can confuse saturation and hue. Like by desaturating a color, it looks like the hue changes sometimes. So it's something you'll only realize by playing around for a really long time. Like I would think it kind of looks too greenish yellow with the yellows up. But if you play with saturation, now it looks very blue, and it's just a little point I want to make about how working with colors can be so difficult. And now we want the oranges to pop through. So yeah, another example of just saturation really changing almost the hues. And then luminance, drop the greens to make them like deeper. Maybe the flowers to pop. Not really. The magentas. Back up to the curves. It's down a bit, just so we get a touch more matte. I'm gonna take out a bit more green, go for more purple. Yeah, I think that improves the skin tone a lot. Purple, let's bring them up, try to make those colors pop. Reds, so her lips, and some flowers. Oranges a touch. Magentas pop, not many blues. Aquas, yeah. I'll probably actually enable profile corrections, and then we probably just have too much green tone, so I might just shift this to the right. And I think we're pretty good. Like maybe we look a touch too warm, the temperature down the touch, and then can play with the contrast to just like get that right amount of matte. And then just pay attention if you want the flowers to pop more. Yeah, the whites up a touch maybe. And yeah, I'd say the main things are probably the curves here. So you can see how much of a role the curves played in just the white balance alone. So it's by this curve here. And then white balance up here was also important. Knowing the difference between sliders and curves is very important for this one, because you want the matte and you want the right amount of detail. Saturation played a really big role. You can see how almost the colors almost look different, but you're actually just messing with saturation. So that's like another thing like you begin to learn later on. Like luminance is the brightness of colors, and it's like color contrast we've added in a touch there, and the hues played a good role there, bringing out touch of skin tone. And grain is probably something I've missed, so I'm gonna go in a lot of roughness because this style is very filmic, small size. And yeah, I think his style still has a little more matte. Like you can play around in here. Might go, yeah, highlights down just a touch. And then touch more contrast, but more shine. Yeah, anyway, we've come a long way. So reset after. So it follows his feed very well, where it goes very blue, very orange, and very green. So he's worked in the blues and the greens, and then the skin tone is pretty on point with all of his other ones. After, and yeah, knowing the difference between the sliders and curves is probably the biggest one. Biggest thing, most advanced thing to know and learn, which can take a long time to learn, because you want the matte, but you also want the brightness and the right amount of detail. It's hard to explain, but yeah, that's it for this one. Okay, so just make sure you've been through like my free trainings. You'll get some free curve presets. Otherwise, yeah, comment who you want to see. You can DM me the exact style you want on Instagram. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.